All right, how we doing, guys? Hope everything's going well. And I'm bored. I'm really bored without you guys here. I miss the conversations, discussions, fun we have. It is what it is. Going to keep moving on. All right, so yesterday we left off talking about fundamentalists and modernists. Okay, this was a divide in the United States at the time. And this divide is going to only increase when we talk about today's lesson with Prohibition, the Temperance Movement, and how these groups of people are really getting after it. Right, they're going at it real hard, and we're gonna have to try to find a way to maybe ease the tensions, which in some ways creates more tension, which we'll talk about more today and tomorrow. All right, so describe what fundamentalists and modernists are. What are the differences of these two groups of people that emerged in the 1920s? All right, there you go. I'll give you a couple seconds, pause the video, fill it out, and then we'll review it. We'll go over it. Take a sip of this. All right. Okay. So we'll first start off with modernists. Okay. This is the new emerging lifestyle, the new emerging style that's going on in the United States, something that's never been seen before. And a lot of that has to do with urbanization. And we talked about urbanization before in chapter one, how many of these people in these rural areas are moving towards these bigger cities where industries, factories are located. And with these factories, we all know that they're located on bodies of water, right? To travel goods and resources out and in of these bigger cities to try to fuel their economies, right? And fuel their production. And as the United States is shifting from this developing country to a developed country, which we'll get to a little bit more when we get to World War II, uh, this was a huge shock to many people because people were still focused in this traditional lifestyle where religion was key, number one, right? Primary focus. And that even schooling, teachings were done strictly from the Bible, right? They didn't really have textbooks at the time. I mean, they did, but for the most part, it was just teachings about the Bible and religion, okay, and how to really, how to focus on really focus on these good moral values, okay, and how to socialize things like that with people in a almost like a religious setting. So fundamentalists, another term of it is called traditionalists because they're still stuck in that traditional style. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just obviously there's different things going on in the cities that was a huge shock and change to people. So fundamentalists, traditionalists, mostly focused in the rural setting, out working on a family farm. A lot of their profit is based off of crops, production, you name it. Okay, and again, this is almost like an older generation, right? They're mostly focused on just sticking to a routine, a kind of like a scheduled thing. I know my grandparents did for sure. My grandparents, well, my grandma, she would wake up all the time early, way too early, go down, make breakfast for everybody, you name it, and then she'd sit there at the radio, which I thought was interesting. And she would sit at the radio and listen to broadcasts, things like that. And it's like, that's not nothing I would do. She'd read the newspaper, and she'd do laundry, she'd do things outside, she'd be, really just working around the house, and it just seemed like it was a never-ending process for her. And when she would see me wake up, kind of lounge around, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd be getting my breakfast going. I'd be watching cartoons. I'd be then switching on to video games, getting after it. And she'd just be like, "Oh, I can't believe you're doing this. You should be really trying to clean things up. You should be trying to work things out. You should be doing things more than just mind-numbing things." And it was just a huge shock for her. And that's kind of how I relate this topic together. And then modernists, like I mentioned before, focus in these industrial cities, in these larger areas, okay, where many people are coming together in these bigger cities. And let's face it, at the time of the progressive era, they had more times on their hand. So what are they going to do at that time? They're going to go out to bars. They're going to go out to clubs. They're going to be drinking. They're going to be listening to music. They're going to be going to bars to listen to live music at the time. Listen to the radios. They're going to be trying to purchase and buy these items that at the time they don't have the money for it, but installment buying is going to allow them to purchase these items, even though, let's face it, at the time they didn't have the money to buy it. But with installment buying, which we're going to talk about when you're on vocab terms, they can purchase it. To the fundamentalists, this was a huge shock. They couldn't believe what they're seeing, what they're visualizing. It was just almost like a craze that they couldn't comprehend. All right, and then the differences, like I mentioned before, it's just two totally different lifestyles. One's focused on the hustle and bustle of the cities, having fun, entertainment, drinking, listening to music. The other one is working on the farm, reading out of the Bible, focusing on family lifestyle and aspects rather than spending all your money at the bars, booze, living it up, having a fun time. Two totally different lifestyles clashing together. And you can kind of compare it to with your grandparents today. The older generation always looks down. I can't believe you're wasting your time with these video games, with these things that you're doing right now. Listening and watching the TikToks. Come on, let's go. All right, there you go. That's a bell ringer for today. Vocab terms, I didn't forget. Installment buying. Okay, so installment buying, real quick, is just a way of purchasing items almost like a monthly payment. So you're not paying for the full item up front. Okay, you'll purchase the item. Let's say you put $10 down. Okay, let's say it's a $50 item. You put $10 down, and then next month you'll have a payment due of, let's say, $10 or $5. So although you can't afford that product, let's say it's a microwave or something like that, you can't dish out to $50. You just put $10 down, and over some time, let's say every month, you make a payment on it. And many of these businesses put interest rates on it so that they make money off of you and your payments. Okay, so it's just to help more Americans purchase products and items so that they could keep the economy going, keep production moving. And it's a good idea, right? It helps both parties out. Obviously, if you spread out and buy too many things all at once, it's going to cause some issues because you might not have the money to pay back all these different items that you have. It's like a credit card, okay? Bull market. So a bull market is really just the stock market rising at an alarming rate. Yeah, they don't see a plateau. They don't see they don't see it really leveling out. They just see a constant rise. And this is where many of these products are being bought up. You see business growth, okay? You see more economic activity to the point where you see a constant increase in production, buying, you name it. And it's a good thing. Unfortunately, things level out, though, eventually. They plateau, they stop. But for a bull market, in this certain case, this is a constant growth in production, constant growth in economic growth, okay? Mass production, all right? Mass production, thanks to the assembly line, right? They can produce a lot of these items at a fast, alarming rate. And with this fast, alarming rate of production of goods and finalized products, eventually, right, that price is going to drop because there's going to be an oversupply. And with this mass production, if you have an oversupply of goods and items, then the price is going to drop, making it more affordable for the American people. And that's going to increase the style of living for many Americans, especially during the 1920s. With these new production methods, with the assembly line, this allows workers to not work near as long. And this allows for production of goods and products faster and more efficient, causing a lower price in goods, which makes it more affordable for Americans to buy. And let's face it, increase their style of living. It's awesome. Great stuff, right? No longer do they have to, wish and want that they could get these items of microwaves and freezers, right? Wash machines, you name it. Now they can purchase it through installment buying, and a lot of these goods are affordable. And it just makes lifestyle so much easier for Americans. That's why they call it the Roaring '20s. All right, there you go. There's the vocab terms for today. All right, real quick, not too long. All right, so yesterday we finished up talking about fundamentalists, modernists, okay, how this was a huge shock. You have the rural setting, all right, it's traditional fundamentalist style of lifestyle, and then you have the modernists in the urban areas, going out, drinking booze, and having a great time after work. Okay, two totally different lifestyles, a huge clash in American society. All right, so another thing, prohibition. All right, we'll talk about the prohibition a little bit more tomorrow. Okay, one example of clash between city and farm was the passage of the 18th Amendment. So for almost 100 years, so ever since 1820, 1830, there's been a movement called the Temperance Movement. Make sure you remember that. The Temperance Movement was a way to try to bring back these good moral values to families. Okay, many of these people thought that men, especially after work, they're going and booze and drinking, having a great time, and they weren't really focusing on family aspects, good moral values. And these men would just spend their wages at the bar rather than on their family. And there would be a lot of abuse in the households because, let's face it, they're not really spending time with their family, with their loved ones. And it caused a lot of tension, a lot of problems. And the fundamentalists, traditionalists, which try to push for this temperance movement, this prohibition, this end of the sale of alcohol, it got pretty ugly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow with the rising of gangs, even police officers poisoning alcohol and different types of consumption of alcohol. There's a lot of gang wars, violence over it, and it really wasn't a good time in American history. All right, so the new law made it illegal to make, sell, or transport liquor. Look out. Look out. And again, this is going to just create gangs. It's going to create different types of violence, okay, to the point where police officers aren't going to abide by the rules of prohibition because, let's face it, they want to drink too. And it's going to create a even bigger separation between the fundamentalists and the modernists. All right, so prohibition lasts from 1920 to 1933 when it was repealed by the 21st Amendment. Easy way to remember it, 18th Amendment. Okay, you can't drink alcohol when you're 18. All right, don't attempt it. And then 21st Amendment, when can you drink alcohol legally? 21. Okay, and that's what repealed the 18th Amendment. They thought, you know what, there's a lot of violence over it, a lot more issues, so we're going to end this prohibition. We're going to end the 18th Amendment. The 21st Amendment does that. It ends the 18th Amendment, cancels it out. All right, so support for prohibition. All right, so reformers had long believed alcohol led to crime, child and wife abuse, and accidents, which, okay, let's face it, it kind of is a tendency. There's a correlation there. And this was a huge alarming problem for many of these fundamentalists, traditionalists in the rural setting. They thought that their men weren't spending much time with the family. The women especially led this movement, okay? It kind of stopped, it halted during the Civil War, and that's what really caused issues from like 1860s all the way up until the 1920s, where it really just wasn't followed near as much. And then right around the 1920s, early 1910s, after World War I, many Americans, women especially, tried to push for this back again. It's like, you know what? We had to halt during wartime, but now that we're in peace negotiations, we should really kick this back up. Try to bring these good fundamentalist core values back to families so we don't have a corrupt society. All right. So supporters were largely from rural and Southwest, okay, like I mentioned before, traditionalists, fundamentalists. And the church-affiliated Anti-Saloon League and the Women's Temperance Movement helped push for the 18th Amendment. So there'd be a lot of peaceful protests. There'd be a lot of examples of women marching onto public facilities, political buildings, organizations, and really just picketing out in front of it, saying we need to look at trying to save the household, save and help the people out during these tough times. And we need to bring back fundamentalist values to households. And one of these signs that I think is pretty good. Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. So if you're drinking and boozing all night long, it's hanging out with the boys, because every night at that time was Saturday night, right? Saturdays for the boys. And if you were boozing it up, you're not getting a kiss from your wife, your loved one. So this was a huge movement. It happened for a long period of time. And it didn't stop until the 18th Amendment was passed. And like I mentioned before, we'll talk more tomorrow with different types of gangs, problems, and issues emerging. And one other term. So we have the fundamentalists, right? Traditionalists. There's another term to match with that. So fundamentalists, traditionalists, we're going to put the dries. Okay, the dries, obviously, they didn't want alcohol, right? They didn't want the sale and production of alcohol to happen. Okay, and then on the other side, we have the modernists who lived in these rural urban areas, and they lived in these cities where this was a fast pace of life. After work, what do? You go to the bar, you drink it up, you have fun with your friends. And they were called the wets because they wanted alcohol, right? They wanted liquor, right? So there was another separation: fundamentalists, traditionalists, dries, modernists, wets. Okay, and these were things that really caused tensions throughout American society to a point where there's more violence, there's more issues occurring because of this 18th Amendment. All right, here's another propaganda piece, I guess you could say, political cartoon, whatever you want to say. So help me to keep him pure. Please vote against the sale of liquors. So they're showing the woman and the child, obviously showing a love, almost like a love, caring, devotion, right? Traditional style of household family. And they want to try to promote this to the American people, that we're trying our best to try to bring back this good social norms to families. And this is a poster supporting the Prohibition, 18th Amendment. Okay, this is what you'd see on the traditional fundamentalist dry side for supporting this. All right, there you have it. I'm going to post a video of this as well, so please work on that and check it out. It explains the Prohibition, the Temperance Movement a little bit more, and I think you'll find it interesting. There you go. Have a good one, guys.